very nice sometimes to do these things together as a group, blending like milk and water, as the Buddha sometimes says. Do you know where this comes from, this simile, blending like milk and water? Where these three monks, they were living together in a forest, and then at one time the Buddha comes to visit them. And then he asks them, are you getting along? How are you practicing? And then they say, actually, yeah, we get along very well. We're living together in harmony. And then the monk said, we are blending like milk and water, right? Because if you take a cup and put milk and water, it mixes immediately, right? You cannot separate them anymore. It becomes like one. So in this way, even though he says we are three in body, we are almost like one in mind. I think Shakespeare also had something similar. So showing that they support each other, they care for each other, they listen to each other. Like when we chant and recite something together, we listen to each other, we adjust our speed, our personal preference to the preference and the energy of the group. So in the same way, they are blending, so that you can't even hear the individual voices anymore. Or when we live in a family, we support each other. We don't care always, okay, what is my preference? What do I want? Sometimes I might just listen, what do the others need? What does my mother need? What do my children need? And so on. It doesn't mean that we always have to put ourselves last. This is also not the Buddha's teachings. But we also consider our own benefit, but also the benefit of others. So we consider the benefit of both. Just imagine a world where everybody cares not just for his own benefit, but also for the benefit of others. What kind of world would that be? Just imagine living in a world like that, where people have loving kindness, care, compassion for others. Not just individuals, but also politicians. What kind of world would that be? There would be no more wars, no conflicts. Yes, there would be differences of opinion. That has to remain. Because if there's no difference of opinion, it means one of the two parties is not thinking, not thinking for themselves. You know, sometimes a young couple, they get together and they're completely in love. And then you ask them, they say, no, actually, we never quarrel. We have no disputes, we never quarrel about anything. We agree on everything. Well, I don't know if this is a good sign or not. If you never have any difference of opinion, it means one of you is probably not thinking for yourself. You just go along with whatever the other one says. And that's okay, as long as there's the honeymoon period. But sooner or later in a relationship, we also have to learn how to communicate our wishes, our desires, our dislikes, kindly, politely, and then make the other person hopefully understand and wish to cater to some degree to our needs. So it's not a good sign if there's never any conflict, people never speak about difficulties. This is not a sign of a mature relationship. Of course, the other extreme also we want to avoid, where every day you fight over tiny things. That's also not beneficial. So you want to find the right balance, probably. But yeah, just imagine a world where everybody cares deeply, profoundly for others. Would you like to live in such a world? Of course. In fact, I think nowadays many people suffer from ADD or ADHD. Have you heard about this? Yeah. What does ADD stand for? Attention Deficit Disorder. Cannot pay attention. But actually the way I use these two words is a bit different. ADD for me stands for Affection Deficit Disorder. Lack of affection, empathy, loving kindness. And ADHD usually stands for Attention Deficit and Hyperactivity Disorder. Again, my acronym is Affection Deficit and Humility Disorder. So lack of humility, of humbleness, and lack of affection. Because these are the roots that cause problems both in our personal relationships, but also on a larger societal level, and even on a political level. Selfishness, lack of care for others, and so on. So ADD and ADHD can understand them also as affection deficit disorder. So what's the countermeasure? What does the Buddha teach in order to overcome ADD? Loving kindness. The 4 Brahma Viharas even. Yeah, but especially loving kindness, I agree. Loving kindness is the direct antidote for a lack of care for others. Compassion, of course, also. So loving kindness is the Buddha's answer to a lack of affection, selfishness, lack of respect for the life of others, including animals, of course. So this combination of loving kindness, compassion, is the solution to many, or would be the solution to many of the issues we have in the world. Not just in the world, but also maybe in the family, on the workplace, or even in a private level. And loving kindness, there's another state that is actually quite similar, but not the same. Loving kindness is the wish for well-being of others, isn't it? So, may you be happy. You want somebody to be well and happy. But then there's also what we call love, isn't it? You open any Facebook or WhatsApp, there's so many nice poems and verses, songs and literature written about love. But then, is that the same as loving kindness? Or not? How is it? Any idea what's the difference? Is there any difference between love and loving kindness? Oh, okay, that's a good one already. Yeah. The love is usually conditioned. Well, you love me, you do good things for me, I love you. Right? It's very conditional. Somebody else who is just walking on the street, we don't feel very deeply in love with him or her, most likely. But your own spouse, your own parents, you love very much. Why? Because they have been raising you up, they've been caring for you. So your love towards them is highly conditioned and dependent on what they are doing for us. So it's not completely unconditional. Whereas loving kindness doesn't ask questions. What have you done for me? What can I do for you? It's just universal. It doesn't distinguish between, oh, this is a nice person, I like him or her very much. Or this is a neutral person, I don't know him or her, I don't really care. Or this is my enemy, definitely don't like him or her. Loving kindness is not making this kind of distinctions. And love also is often associated with strong attachment. My children, my spouse, my husband, my wife, isn't it? So love is appropriating to me. Whereas loving kindness, again, is universal. It doesn't care about mine or yours. You can have loving kindness for all beings equally, without making distinctions between a dear person, a neutral person, or an enemy. Loving kindness goes in all directions and doesn't need these distinctions. That's what we call breaking down the boundaries or the borders. When people speak of breaking down the wall, like in Germany, East Germany and West Germany, they broke down the wall. Okay, nice. But this is just the external boundary, the wall between two countries. But then actually the deep wall that is more difficult to break down is the wall that we may carry in our heart, where we put up a boundary, a border. These are the category of people we like, these are the ones we don't like. Sometimes it depends even on race or on gender or whatever, or maybe job, whatever you think is the right category to distinguish. So this is not loving kindness yet. But once we break down those boundaries, those borders, where we don't care where a person comes from, how old, how young, beautiful, ugly, rich, poor, none of that matters. Not even whether it's a human being or not, animals included, spirits, ghosts, yakas, people in hell, people in heaven, they're all included in the universal feeling and emotion of loving kindness. Love is very different from that. Yeah. So there's this instance in the Buddha's time where there was this lady, her name was Lady Visakha. Have you heard of her? Yeah. She was actually quite a well-to-do supporter of the Buddha, of the Sasana. And she would come from time to the monastery, offer supplements and all kind of things. And so she was quite a popular lady, and also the monks appreciated her, and she would often support the Sangha. And she also had a granddaughter. Her name was Sudatta. And Sudatta was still quite young, and at some point her granddaughter got sick and passed away. And you can imagine the grief that a person will have when her grandchild passes away. So Visakha, also the same. She was no exception. So she was grieving, crying, lamenting over the loss of her granddaughter. Very understandable. So then she went to the Buddha and asked for his counsel. And the Buddha, well, quite down to earth, gave her a very brief lecture, a verse that we nowadays also have in the Dhammapada, where he says, from love, from affection, comes sorrow. From love or from affection comes grief. For one who is free from love, there is no sorrow, hence then grief. So on the first glance that might sound a bit, wow, quite brutal. You shouldn't love anyone. But the Buddha points to the cause-effect relationship. Love that is bound up with attachment, with craving towards a person. It's just a matter of time before sorrow and lamentation will come to the person. Not to the other, but the one person who has this strong attachment. There's nothing wrong about liking our family, our friends, about caring for them, looking after each other. In fact, this is what we should do. But the stronger the attachment, the clinging, the craving for a person is, the stronger the suffering when he or she is doing something that seems counterproductive or harmful to her, or maybe also harmful to us. Or in the worst case, leaves us, goes somewhere else, or doesn't want to talk with us anymore, or passes away. So these are all ways of separating from what we love, or for whom we love. So the stronger the clinging, the attachment, the craving, the stronger the suffering that will come once things end. And it's not a question whether things will end or not. This is not a question. The question is only when will it happen. Sooner or later, we have to be separated from whomever we like and love. Latest at the time of death. But most likely, or not most likely, could be maybe at that time, or at the time of the other person's death, or at our own death, or earlier, where we go separate ways, or we lose sight of each other, or a person moves away for work, or because she becomes a nun or a monk, or whatever reason. So it all can entail separating from whom we love. So stronger attachment will lead to more suffering. Whereas loving kindness is not bound up with attachment and clinging. Loving kindness still deeply cares about other people. Loving kindness still has the best interest of your beloved ones in heart. At the same time, there's also a sense of letting go. I don't have to be together with each other every day. I can still deeply care and wish for the well-being of my friends, of my family, of all beings, but without needing them, having and depending on somebody. So this is the only thing that needs to change. We don't have to push people away. We just have to push the craving and clinging away. So we can still be in company with each other, enjoy each other's friendship, family, and so on. But look out whenever you identify attachment, craving for a person, a group, whatever it is. So that's the thing that needs to be cut. But even in the Buddha's time, the monks also didn't sometimes know what to cut, what to reduce and what not. Sometimes some of the monks, they were struggling also with love, but not just normal loving kindness, but even carnal love, the fantasies about women or girls, or the nuns also the same towards the men, is nothing different. And so at one time a monk, he got so fed up with his own desires and fantasies that he took a sharp knife and cut off his member, So he was it shows he was quite ambitious in terms of the Dhamma practice. He didn't take the Dhamma lightly. So I got so frustrated with constantly being plagued by lust and desires and fantasies. Being a monk, of course, he cannot fulfill them. He also didn't want to disrobe, so he just cut it off. So then they reported a case to the Buddha and told the Buddha what had happened. And the Buddha said, okay, that's interesting. Buddha said, okay, you have cut off something, but unfortunately you have cut off the wrong thing. You cut off your body part. Your body part is not the problem. It's the desire, the attachment, the craving. That's the thing you should have cut off, not your body parts. It's not the body part's fault. And in fact, it's also more beneficial to cut off desires, attachments, and clinging rather than humiliating parts of your body. So it's the lesson. We don't have to cut off from other people. We don't have to cut off from our property. But it's the attachment, craving, and clinging we need to cut. So loving kindness, great. As much, the more, the better. But love that is bound up with attachment, be careful. That one is can bite you in the end. So this is the difference between, in Pali we call metta, loving kindness, or bema. Bema is just normal love that everybody knows. You don't have to be a spiritual practitioner. Every mother loves her children. Even not just humans, even animals, the dogs, cats, they also like their puppies and their kittens. So that's just nature, just evolution. It's not a great accomplishment for a mother, a father to care for his own children. In fact, if you don't do that, there's already something quite wrong. And I wouldn't count that as accomplishment. Of course, it's good and important to care, but then again, the sense of craving, attachment, and clinging can cause a lot of suffering, of course. So, loving kindness is the state that the Buddha recommends. Last time, on Wednesday, we were talking a bit the benefits of loving kindness. So we're not going through them again today. Or maybe we can just recollect some of those. What are the benefits of loving kindness? The Buddha gave a long list of 11 different benefits. Do you recall some of those? One sleeps well, awakes well, and has no bad dreams. That's quite nice already, isn't it? Say, if you practice a lot of loving kindness, especially before going to bed, at that time you're free from nightmares, and beasts and ghosts will not chase you in your dream. Okay, what else? Other benefits of loving kindness? Complexion is bright, good looking. Have you noticed actually that people, when they smile, when they're happy, when they're loving, actually they're quite good to look. But somebody who is angry and frowning, even an otherwise attractive person, doesn't look good at the time when he or she is angry. But by being cheerful, bright, loving, that's actually the complexion changes. So it's just the beauty that comes from inside, not from outside. What else? One is dear to others, to humans, and even to non-human beings. They like you. They are not trying to harm you. That's one of the benefits of loving kindness. What else? Weapon and poison cannot harm you. At a time when your mind is very strong, maybe also associated with good samadhi, at that time you're kind of immune temporarily for harm through weapons or poison. So become indestructible. What else? Yes, one with the practice of loving kindness and contemplating on its impermanent nature can even lead all the way to Nibbana, or if getting no higher, at least to rebirth in the Brahma world. Also, it leads to samadhi. The mind gets concentrated. So many benefits of loving kindness. And of course, most importantly, it's also the antidote, the medicine for anger, for ill will, for aversion, for hatred. So if you find yourself quite regularly or often getting irritated about other people, or maybe have a bit of a hot temper, then loving kindness is the ideal method to balance that out. Because it's the opposite. Anger is one way I don't like, I hate. Whereas loving kindness, I like. I appreciate, I care. So these two opposites cannot coexist in the mind at the same time. At the moment when you have aversion, there's no loving kindness. At the time when there's loving kindness, aversion has no space in your mind. So you can actually, almost like a vaccine, you can prepare yourself for the day by starting the day with loving kindness. In this way, later in the day, when you meet people, you don't get so easily triggered. So you can face even difficult conversations or people whom you usually feel a bit irritated about. But because you have done loving kindness beforehand, conversations you have later, they will go more smoothly. And the mind does not react so strongly. So it's like a vaccine, you immunize yourself from aversion. So and you can do, you can take booster shots, however many you want. There are no side effects, you don't have to worry. So loving kindness booster shots, you can do multiple times a day, 5 times, 6 times, it's fine. Even if it's just 3 minutes of loving kindness, even that helps. So many benefits. What do you think is the difference between loving kindness and compassion? Sometimes we mix them together in the same pool. But do you have any idea about the differences between them? Compassion, your object in your mind, what you imagine is a person who is suffering or a group of people who is suffering, and you wish for them to be free from suffering. That's why sometimes we use these phrases, may you be free from suffering. May you overcome sickness. This is compassion. You have compassion with a person who is suffering. Loving kindness, you're not imagining people suffering, you're imagining people being happy. So it's a little bit the other side, the flip side of a coin. So there's the suffering that doesn't lead to happiness, but the opposite is happiness. So by imagining people to be well and happy, you imagine them smiling. You don't imagine them suffering. So loving kindness has happy people as the object, whereas compassion has beings who are suffering as the object. Both lead to a sense of connectivity, connection, softness in our heart, kindness. So there's some similar feelings and emotions going along with both states. But actually the sanya, the perception in our mind, is slightly different. So compassion cares and wishes for people to be free from suffering, whereas loving kindness wishes for them to be happy. There would be so much more to say about this topic, and also it would be nice to practice together. But time is short, so we cannot cover everything today. If you like, you can come back on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. You come here, we can practice loving kindness together. Come here to Tim's, we're having a 20 minutes, 25 minutes meditation session.